They told me my name wasn't on the house anymore. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I genuinely thought it was some sort of mistake. Mr. Ellis? The woman behind the desk said calmly, her eyes flicking from her screen to my face. You're no longer listed as an owner on this property. I stood there, still wearing the post-surgery compression socks under my jeans, with a dull ache in my chest. Not from the healing incision, but from something far deeper. I had just survived open-heart surgery. I had come out the other side grateful to be alive, grateful to still have Claire, my wife of 12 years, by my side. She was there every day during recovery, wiping my forehead, holding my hand, whispering, "You're going to be okay. Baby, we've got this." I believed her. What I didn't know was that while I was unconscious on an operating table with a ventilator down my throat, she was filing paperwork, transferring the deed to our house into her name, erasing me from the one place I thought I'd always belong. She waited until I was at my weakest to do it. That's the part that hurt most. Not the betrayal, not the house, not even the money. It was the cold precision of it all. The planning. The fact that she kissed me goodnight while quietly taking everything away. I should have known something was off before the surgery. Claire had started locking her phone. She'd step outside to take calls from her sister, but never mentioned what they talked about. She stopped asking how I felt and started asking how much longer I'd be out of work. I thought it was stress. I thought she was scared. Turns out she was preparing. I found out about the deed 2 weeks after I got home. I went to the county office to update our tax information. The woman pulled up our file, tapped a few keys, and said those 7 words that would change everything. Your name isn't on the house anymore. And just like that, everything inside me shifted. The man who walked into that office was still weak, still healing, still naive enough to believe love meant something. The man who walked out, he was ready for war. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my truck for almost an hour in the county parking lot, staring at the steering wheel. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. Everything inside me had gone quiet, like the silence before a storm. I kept thinking, why? What did I ever do to deserve this? I wasn't perfect, sure, but I was loyal, faithful. I worked hard, built our life from nothing. That house? I laid the tiles with my own 2 hands. Painted the walls, installed the fence in the backyard so Claire could plant her damn roses. And now she owned it, all of it, and I was just extra. I didn't confront her that night. I needed to be smart, not angry. Claire had clearly planned this. That meant she was expecting a reaction. Tears, yelling, maybe even begging. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I came home and acted like nothing had changed. I kissed her on the cheek, asked about dinner, even told her I loved her. She smiled and said she was ordering sushi. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I went through the safe in the closet. That's when I noticed something else was missing. My medical records, specifically the one that stated I had a high chance of survival. Gone. Claire had told everyone, including my family, that I might not make it, that the odds were slim, that she was preparing for the worst. But she knew. She knew the surgery had gone well. She knew I was going to make it. She just didn't want anyone else to know that before she made her move. I looked at myself in the mirror that day and saw someone I barely recognized. Pale, thin, stitched up from chest to belly. But there was fire in my eyes. She thought I was too weak to fight back. She was wrong. The first thing I did was call my lawyer. I'd never needed one before. I wasn't exactly the kind of guy who lived in a world of legal jargon and court battles. But this was different. I couldn't let her win without a fight. And I needed a plan. I didn't mention the quitclaim deed right away. I had to play it smart. She'd be expecting me to go in all guns blazing, demanding my name back on the house. But I wasn't going to do that. I needed leverage. I needed to hit her where it hurt. And I needed to make sure I had the upper hand. The lawyer told me about something I hadn't even thought of: asset concealment. While I was recovering, Claire had transferred other assets to money, jewelry, and her car. She'd made sure everything was in her name. But I wasn't about to let her walk away with everything. The next day, I took a trip to the bank. I didn't want to raise any suspicion, so I acted calm, normal. But inside I was boiling. I asked for a detailed record of the joint account activity. The teller printed out a thick stack of papers. It was more than just withdrawals, it was a complete trail of manipulation. She'd moved money in and out of the account, transferring large sums to unknown accounts, and then making small deposits back to make it seem like everything was fine. That's when I found the final piece of the puzzle. A transfer to a Cayman Islands account. At that moment, everything clicked. She wasn't just taking the house. She was planning on disappearing. And she was planning on taking as much of my money as possible while she did it. I smiled to myself. It was time to play her game, only better. I knew the next move had to be quick. Claire was already making her plans, and I could tell by the way she was acting that she was getting ready to leave. Take the money, take the house, and disappear. But I wasn't going to let that happen. The first thing I did was contact a private investigator. I knew that if I wanted to get to the truth, I needed someone who could dig deep. I wasn't sure if Claire had left any obvious clues, but I wasn't about to take any chances. The PI, a guy named Mike, started looking into her financials. What I didn't know was that Claire had already made arrangements to transfer all her assets into a blind trust, which meant she thought she could escape scrutiny. But that wasn't going to work. Mike found something even more telling. Claire had booked a flight to Europe for the following month, on a one-way ticket. She was planning on leaving me in the dust. She thought I was too weak to notice, too distracted by my health to keep up. But I wasn't weak. I was preparing. I called Mike the next morning and told him to follow her. If she was planning to skip town, I needed proof. I also needed to make sure I had all the right documents to stop her in her tracks. But I wasn't just going to wait for her to make a mistake. I needed to hit her with a legal bombshell that she wasn't expecting. I contacted a forensic accountant. I wanted to make sure every dollar she had taken from our joint accounts was traced. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. I made it clear to both Mike and the accountant. This wasn't just about getting the house back. It was about getting everything she had stolen and putting a stop to it all. That night, Claire seemed a little too relaxed. It was almost as if she thought everything was going according to plan. She sat down on the couch with a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone. I could tell something was off, but I played it cool. She asked if I was feeling better. I nodded and gave her a half-smile. But inside, I was already plotting my next move. I couldn't act too quickly. I couldn't make her suspicious. But I had something that would change everything. I had a meeting scheduled with my lawyer the next day. This time, I was going to make sure Claire understood that I wasn't going down without a fight. I had everything I needed. The proof of her fraudulent transactions, the flight records, and even the confirmation of her blind trust. It was time to flip the script. She had thought she was the one in control. She thought I was weak. But the tables were about to turn, and I was going to take back everything. The following morning, I woke up early. Before Claire had a chance to get out of bed, my mind was racing, but my plan had been set into motion. Today was the day I would confront her. I had everything ready. The lawyer was expecting me in a few hours. I had the documents, the evidence, the entire picture of Claire's betrayal. But before I made my move, I needed to get one last thing. Claire's reaction. She woke up, as usual, smiling like nothing was wrong. She kissed me on the cheek and mentioned something about breakfast. But I could tell something was off. The way she looked at me, the way her eyes avoided mine, I knew she could feel it too. I didn't break the silence. I just nodded and told her I had an appointment with the lawyer. Claire didn't ask any questions. What she didn't know was that Mike, the PI, had followed her yesterday. He had gotten her into a meeting with the lawyer who had handled her blind trust. She was getting advice on how to disappear, and she was doing it with my money. But I wasn't about to let her get away with it. Not when I had the upper hand. When I walked into the lawyer's office, I had a calmness that surprised even myself. The lawyer, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, gave me a nod of approval. He'd reviewed all the documents I provided, and he was ready to take action. But there was one thing I needed to hear from him first. I want to make sure I'm doing this the right way, I said. I need Claire to know I'm not just playing defense. This is offense. He smiled, a slow, knowing grin. We've got everything we need. We can take her down hard, and we can do it fast. That was the moment I knew I had her. I left the lawyer's office with a sense of calm. I had made my first official move, and now it was just a matter of time before Claire started feeling the heat. When I got home, she was sitting in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone again. It was like nothing had changed, but I could tell she was beginning to sense the shift. "Did you get everything sorted?" she asked, her tone a little too casual. I smiled, knowing she had no idea what was coming. "Yeah, everything's fine, but there's something I need to tell you." She froze for just a second, then casually set her phone down. I walked over, leaned against the kitchen counter, and looked at her, locking eyes for the first time in days. "You've been making some interesting moves, Claire. Taking my name off the deed, hiding money, booking a one-way ticket out of here. I've got it all, and I'm not going to let you walk away with everything." For a moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she laughed. A nervous, forced laugh. "What are you talking about? You're just recovering. You don't have the energy for a fight." I leaned in, my voice low and steady. "I'm not playing your game anymore. You thought you could take everything while I was down. But I've got the proof. I've already spoken to the lawyer. I know about the blind trust, and the money you moved around." She went pale. Her eyes darted to the door like she might make a run for it. But there was nowhere to go. She had already made her move, and now it was my turn. Claire stood there, frozen, her hand still resting on the back of the chair. For a moment, she didn't say anything, and I could see the panic setting in. She thought she was untouchable. She thought I wouldn't come after her. But now she was realizing that I wasn't the same man she'd married. I didn't feel anger, not anymore. I felt something else. Control. "You think I'm weak, Claire. You think because I was recovering from surgery, I wouldn't notice what you were doing. But I've been watching. I've been collecting evidence." Her lips parted as she tried to find the words. You don't know what you're talking about. None of that is true." I couldn't help but smile. She was good at this, manipulating people, making them believe what she wanted them to believe. But I wasn't buying it anymore. "I know about the Cayman account. I know about the blind trust. I know about everything you've hidden." I stepped closer to her, my voice steady but firm. "And I'm not just going to let you walk away with it." She swallowed hard, her eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape that wasn't there. "I don't want to hurt you, Claire," I continued. "I just want what's rightfully mine. You took the house, the money, and my trust. But now, I'm taking it all back." Claire started to speak again, but I held up my hand. "No more lies, Claire. You're done." I could see the realization sinking in. She was cornered. All the things she had done behind my back while I was vulnerable were now coming back to haunt her. I had all the proof I needed, but I wasn't going to stop there. The lawyer had given me the tools to strike hard, but I wanted more than just the house. I wanted justice. "I've already filed with the courts," I told her, watching her face drain of color. "Everything you've done is now in the hands of a judge, and I've already put a freeze on our accounts. You won't be going anywhere." Claire took a step back, as if the ground was suddenly too unstable to stand on. "You can't do this," she whispered. "You won't win." I took a deep breath, holding her gaze. "I already have." The silence between us was suffocating. I could feel the weight of everything that had happened. All the years we spent together, the memories, the love I once thought was real, now shattered, replaced with betrayal and deceit. But in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't the one who had lost. I was the one who was going to win. And Claire? She was the one who had to face the consequences. For the first time in weeks, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't just the fact that I had the legal upper hand now. It was that I had finally stopped being passive. Claire had expected me to be broken. She thought I'd be a shell of the man I once was after surgery, after everything she did. But instead of staying down, I stood up. I gathered the evidence, took action, and now I was watching her crumble. Her eyes flicked to the door once more, And I knew what she was thinking. Escape. But it was too late. She couldn't run anymore. "Please," she said, her voice trembling for the first time. "You don't have to do this. We can work this out." Her words felt hollow, and I saw right through them. This wasn't about working things out. This was about saving face. About covering up her lies and her greed. But I wasn't interested in saving her anymore. "Work it out," I said, leaning closer, letting my voice carry the weight of everything I had endured. "You've been working this out for months, Claire. Behind my back. Lying. Stealing. You thought I wouldn't see it. Well, I see it now." She took a step back, but I didn't let her off the hook. "I'm not the one who's going to lose everything here. You are." Claire's face was ashen, the color draining from her as the reality of what was happening sank in. "You can't take everything from me," she said weakly, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She knew she was losing, and nothing she said now could change that. It was time to end this. I'd already filed for the legal freeze on the accounts, but I wanted to make sure she knew she had no way out. I had planned my next move carefully. It wasn't just about winning the house or the money. It was about making sure she'd never hurt anyone again. I called the lawyer. The divorce papers were ready. The assets were all traced, all legally tied to her fraudulent actions. And then I made the final call. I added a clause that would strip her of any claim to the property. Permanently. It was a legal safeguard, a final nail in the coffin of her scheme. I knew she wouldn't be able to fight this. The truth was now on paper. The courts would see what she had done, and her precious new life was about to crumble. I walked back into the kitchen where Claire was now sitting, her eyes fixed on the floor. She looked defeated. There was no more fight in her. I could feel a small sense of relief washing over me, but I kept my composure. This was just the beginning of her consequences. "You're not going anywhere, Claire. Not with anything you've stolen. The house, the accounts, the money. All of it is being returned." Her lips trembled. You can't just take everything." I held my ground. "I already have." The day the final court ruling came, Claire was nowhere to be found. I had already received the court's decision the day before, and I could feel the weight lifting from my chest. Everything was in my favor. The house, the money, the stolen assets. All of it would be returned to me, and Claire would be left with nothing. But there was still a part of me that didn't feel satisfied. Not because I wanted to watch her suffer. I didn't want that. What I wanted was for her to face the consequences of what she'd done. To acknowledge that she couldn't just tear apart someone's life and get away with it. I wasn't going to give her any more chances to hurt anyone else. I waited a few days before I finally heard from her. She showed up at the house one evening, her face pale, her shoulders slumped. She looked like someone who had been carrying a heavy weight for too long, and now it had broken her. "I've lost everything," she said quietly, her voice hollow. "The house. The money. You took it all." I looked at her, and for a moment I didn't say anything. I wanted to feel vindicated. I wanted to see her beg, to see her regret everything she'd done. But the truth was, I had no satisfaction in watching her crumble. "I didn't take it all, Claire," I said calmly. "You gave it to me. You gave me everything when you chose to betray me. I'm not the one who took everything. You did that. You just didn't think there would be a price to pay." She stood there in silence for a long time. I could see the tears in her eyes, but they didn't feel like the apology I'd been waiting for. They felt like a last-ditch effort to hold on to something, anything. "I'm sorry," she whispered, barely audible. I didn't respond right away. The truth was, I didn't owe her forgiveness. Not anymore. What I owed myself was the closure I'd worked for. The peace of knowing that no matter how badly she hurt me, I fought back. And in the end, I won. As I watched her leave that night, I finally felt the weight I'd been carrying all this time start to lift. It wasn't just the house or the money that mattered. It was the fact that I had taken control of my life again. I had taken back my dignity, my future, and my freedom. And now I was free to move on. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more thrilling, emotional tales. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you see the twist coming? What would you have done in my shoes? Leave your thoughts and join the conversation. Stay tuned for more stories of revenge, justice, and triumph.